Have you ever felt that something ancient exists within you, like a knowledge you never learned but recognize? It's not suggestion, it's memory. It's what connects you to the wise men who, thousands of years ago, knew the language of the body, light, and soul. Today, after centuries of oblivion, those seven secrets are returning to light, not as superstitions, but as biological and spiritual keys to reawakening who we truly are. In the ruins of an ancient monastery, a parchment hidden by time revealed seven engraved symbols, seven keys that every civilization, albeit under different names, had practiced in silence: the breath that orders destiny, the water that remembers, the light that awakens, the silence that regenerates, the sound that shapes matter, the earth that heals, and the love that sustains the universe. Egyptian priests recorded them on secret papyrus. Himalayan yogis kept them in glacial caves. Andean shamans chanted them to the mountains. Tibetan monks preserved them in silence. All reached the same truth: the human body is not a machine but a temple, and like every temple, it requires consecration rites. These are ancient codes that cellular memory instinctively recognizes: seven gates, seven forgotten yet innate keys, which, once reactivated, awaken not new knowledge, but a primordial memory engraved in the bones of humanity. The first secret is the sacred breath. To master the breath is to master destiny. Before the word and ritual fire, the divine breath already existed, the threshold between matter and spirit. Ancient cultures recognized in the breath not mere survival, but divine intelligence in motion. In the Egyptian temples of Heliopolis, K life force was considered a flow of consciousness that entered and exited with every breath. In the Vedas, the same principle was called prana, the cosmic breath that sustains all life. Among the Andes, the Quechua sages called it samai, the sacred wind that unites man to Mother Earth. If you feel something resonate within you, leave me your hype now. It's not just a gesture, it's a way of saying you're present, that you're energizing this journey. Three names, three cultures, one truth. Breathing is the gateway between the visible and the invisible. Priests practiced breathing as a ritual of awakening, not as a mechanical function. They inhaled slowly at dawn, holding the golden light of the sun in their spine, and exhaled, dissolving the inner shadows. They called it the breath of Ra. The Greeks inherited this wisdom. Pythagoras taught that harmonious breathing attunes the soul to the music of the spheres. Each inhalation attracts cosmic order, each exhalation liberates internal disorder. Thus, the practice of pneuma became a preparation for sacred knowledge. Even the monks of the Christian desert rediscovered the power of breath in hesychia, divine stillness. They inhaled the name of God, exhaled the noise of the world, and in this rhythm they found the peace that surpasses all understanding. The secret, both spiritual and biological, lies in the vagus nerve, the master channel of the parasympathetic nervous system. Deep breathing activates its regenerative power. The ancients called it aura. Today, science defines it as a bioelectrical field, but the essence remains the same. Other studies show that slow breathing activates longevity genes and deactivates inflammation genes. It's living epigenetics. Yogis knew this and perfected pranayama, the art of directing the life force through the breath. Alternate breathing, nadi shodhana, balances the cerebral hemispheres. Inhaling through the left nostril calms, inhaling through the right energizes. The ancients had no measuring instruments, but they knew the breath was the key to the nervous system. The modern world, however, breathes in fear and haste, oblivious to its natural rhythm. Breathing shallowly is telling the brain, "I'm in danger." This causes the body to tense up, produce stress hormones, weaken the immune system, and cause illness. But conscious breathing restores order. It's not simple relaxation, it's a biological command for healing. In Tibetan monasteries, the practice of tummo, inner fire, demonstrates how breathing can raise body temperature amid the Himalayan cold. Scientists have observed monks drying wet sheets on their bodies using the heat produced by their breathing, a testament to biological autonomy, not magic. When you breathe in consciously, you are not just breathing in oxygen, but intention. When you exhale, you release fear and tension. The simplicity of the gesture is its power. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 7, exhale for 8. This rhythm, called the body's natural tranquilizer, transforms a state of alertness into healing mode in less than 2 minutes. Water, the ancients said, remembers what the mind forgets. This truth was engraved on the walls of the Temple of Luxor, not as a warning, but as a revelation. For them, water was not a mere physical element, but a living substance, a silent witness, and a fluid memory capable of receiving and transmitting subtle information. Every civilization, from east to west, venerated it as a sacred and conscious entity. In the Ganges, a river considered a divine manifestation, Indian sages recognized the flow of the goddess herself. In Japan, Shinto monks practiced purification under icy waterfalls to cleanse not the body but the soul. In Christian baptism, water symbolized death and rebirth, a total resetting of the being. A single understanding resonated throughout all these rites. Water responds to intention. The Essenes, a mystical community of the Judean desert, immersed themselves in their ritual pools only after praying, directing their consciousness toward inner purification. They believed, with profound wisdom, that water listened and responded. Centuries later, science would lend credence to this intuition. Japanese researcher Masaru Emoto demonstrated that water exposed to different words and feelings forms crystals of extraordinary beauty or disharmony, depending on the quality of the received intention. If water responds to thought, and the human body is 70% composed of it, then every emotion, word, and thought affects one's oceanic interiority. Other studies, such as those by biophysicist Gerald Pollack, revealed the existence of a fourth phase of water called structured, endowed with molecular order and superior energetic properties. It surrounds proteins, mitochondria, and DNA, acting as a vehicle of vital information. The ancients, unaware of the scientific terminology, already knew it empirically. They left water in the sun, moved it in vortices, blessed it with words of harmony. Today we know that light, movement, and emotional coherence transform ordinary water into living water. The priests of Karnak expose it to the morning rays for exactly 2 hours before using it in healing rites, a gesture that, according to modern physics, enriched its structure. Even the Sufi dervishes, rotating earthenware basins in reverse time, recited the divine names until the water tuned to the frequency of the prayer. It was quantum physics applied without instruments, an intuitive art of ordering matter. Water is in fact the medium of all biological communication. The body's chemical and nervous system messages flow through it. If this medium is chaotic, communication is distorted. If it is coherent, life thrives. Andean shamans honored Pachamama with the Yakunu ritual. They collected spring water, exposed it to the full moon, and drank it while visualizing white light descending from the mountain into their hearts. They knew that the moon, like the sun, modulates the structure of water with its electromagnetic field. Today, even biology recognizes that water responds to such subtle forces. Even purification rituals through baths and ablutions were not merely hygienic acts. The Greeks in the temples of Asclepius combined herbs, salt, and prayers to transform water into an instrument of regeneration. Nordic cultures alternated heat and cold to stimulate the vital system, knowing that thermal shock rekindles the body's lymph and reawakens the will. Water not only cleanses the body, but also the energy field that surrounds it. In Islamic ablutions, Jewish ritual washing, and Native American sacred baths, the same intent is found: to wash away not only the skin, but the invisible burden of existence. Water, used consciously, dissolves the memory of pain, dissolves emotional exhaustion, and restores humankind's natural inner clarity. In the morning, when water flows over your skin, imagining it as liquid light is enough to transform a daily gesture into a sacred act. As the water flows, every mental or energetic residue is washed away. Water, the mirror of consciousness, not only sustains life, but reflects it. By purifying it, it purifies us. The ancients revered it not out of ignorance, but out of knowledge. They understood that water is the vehicle of divine memory, the substance that unites all living beings in a single current of universal consciousness. It is the language and medium of the soul. Drinking, washing, contemplating it with intention and gratitude means speaking the secret language of creation. The external light, the priests of Heliopolis said, awakens the sun that sleeps within every human being. This maxim, engraved on the obelisks of the City of the Sun over 4 millennia ago, was not simply a poetic allegory, but the representation of a profound knowledge. In every cell of the body resides a solar microcosm, a source of energy and consciousness. The Egyptians called it the Eye of Ra. Modern science recognizes it in the mitochondria, the luminous powerhouse of life. All civilizations, from the Inca Empire to the Indian Vedas, honored the sun not as a distant deity, but as a life-giving principle. In the temple of Coricancha in Cusco, the golden walls reflected the first rays of dawn to spread its purifying power. The priests exposed themselves there bare-chested, allowing the light to penetrate their skin and eyes, knowing that its luminosity not only warms but awakens. Yogis too, through Surya Namaskar, the sun salutation, absorbed solar prana through ritual movements and synchronous breathing, opening energy channels designed to awaken the Kundalini, the dormant flame at the base of the spine. In Greece, in the temples dedicated to Apollo, sunlight was considered medicine. The sick exposed themselves to it at specific times of the day and were healed, not by miracle, but by luminous coherence with the cosmos. Contemporary science confirms these insights. In 1903, Niels Finsen won the Nobel Prize for demonstrating that sunlight cures skin infections, and today we know that the sun regulates circadian rhythms, hormone production, and even the expression of over 2,000 genes. Light is information. Every photon entering through the eyes communicates with the brain, awakening dormant vital functions. Artificial light, lacking its full spectrum, cannot replace the sun. Infrared light penetrates tissues and nourishes the mitochondria. Visible light modulates mood and energy. Ultraviolet light, in moderation, stimulates the synthesis of vitamin D, essential for immune and genetic balance. Lack of sunlight causes disorder, fatigue, and depression, not simply due to a vitamin deficiency, but to a disruption in the dialogue between the body and the cosmos. Biophysicist Fritz Albert Popp discovered that every cell emits biophotons, particles of light that coordinate biological functions. The human body not only receives light, it radiates it. When one consciously exposes oneself to the sun, one's internal light synchronizes with that of the sky, restoring electromagnetic harmony throughout the organism. The Egyptians represented this union with the symbol of the Ankh, the upper circle, an image of the sun, joined with the cross of the human body, united at the heart, the place where divine light becomes life. The Essenes, in their morning communions, welcome the sun with bare chests, visualizing its energy penetrating from the head to the soles of the feet in a perfect circuit of heaven and earth. This was not visionary mysticism, but refined spiritual technology, the human being as a conductor of the vital current flowing between above and below. Anyone can repeat the gesture, just a few minutes in the morning, barefoot, facing the sunrise, with eyes closed and skin free to feel the warmth. The light, passing through the eyelids, reaches the brain and heart. In that moment, matter remembers that it is energy. The body produces serotonin, endorphins, and nitric oxide, substances that elevate mood and relax blood vessels, bringing clarity and peace. The heart, according to ancient traditions and modern research, has cells sensitive to light. When solar radiation reaches it, it opens, vibrates in resonance with the cosmic frequency, and radiates a field of love that extends far beyond the body. Thus, the outer sun becomes a reflection of the inner sun. When the two meet, the human being remembers his or her radiant nature. Cultures around the world celebrated this mystery. The Incas in Inti Raymi, the Festival of Light, the Greeks in the Apollonian solstice, the Egyptians in the equinox of Ra, all recognized the sun as the source of consciousness and life. Even today, surrounded by artificial lights and incessant distractions, dawn continues to call us. Every ray that shines through the window is an invitation to awaken. Exposing ourselves to the sun with gratitude and awareness means giving back what it gives us without asking for anything: attention, presence, gratitude. In that encounter, the body perceives that it is not made merely of flesh, but of fire, that it is not separate from the star, but its reflection. It is not about adoration, but about recognition. The sun is not an external divinity, but a mirror of the divinity that dwells within us. Only in silence, Tibetan monks claimed, can one hear the language of cells. This phrase, engraved on the walls of Sera Monastery, was not poetic expression, but empirical evidence. They had observed that when the body is immersed in silence and freed from excessive stimuli, it begins to communicate its deepest truth. Silence is not the absence of sound, but rather the presence of listening. In every spiritual tradition, fasting and stillness were instruments of purification. Buddhism practiced them in meditation retreats, Christianity in Lent, Islam in Ramadan, Judaism in Yom Kippur, Indian yogis in prolonged abstinence from food, Native American shamans in visionary fasts. All understood that deprivation is not suffering, but a path to renewal. In 2016, science confirmed its truth. Biologist Yoshinori Osumi discovered autophagy, the process by which cells destroy and regenerate their own components damaged during fasting. The ancients didn't know the word, but they experienced the phenomenon. After a few days without nourishment, the mind became clear, the emotions calmed, and the life force regenerated. For them, fasting was a rebirth. The fourth ritual, however, is not just about food, it is fasting from all excess, from words, images, noise, and distraction. The Pythagoreans imposed 5 years of silence on their disciples to purify their speech and discipline their thoughts. The Essenes retreated to the desert for 40 days, alone with the sun, the earth, and prayer. At the end of this experience, they returned transformed, not because they had seen the divine, but because they had learned to listen to it within themselves. Modern neuroscience confirms what monks already knew. Silence and fasting stimulate neurogenesis, the formation of new brain cells, especially in the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, the centers of memory and awareness. The absence of stimuli allows the brain to regenerate and reorganize its architecture. During deep stillness, the brain enters theta and delta waves, frequencies of healing and contemplation. In these states, the nervous system rebalances, the immune system strengthens, and the endocrine glands regain harmony. The monks of Mount Athos in their hesychia would remain in isolation for days, internally repeating a single invocation until all thought dissolved. Silence became living prayer, pure presence. Silence, contrary to appearances, is the mind's most active state. While the body is silent, the cells speak and the soul listens. Modern functional medicine studies have shown that 5 days of controlled fasting completely regenerates the immune system, inducing the death of old cells and the activation of stem cells. Biology obeys the rhythm of metabolic silence. But silence doesn't just affect the body. Sufi mystics taught that every unresolved emotion leaves a residue in the soul, an energetic sediment that only inner fasting can dissolve. Amazonian masters speak of dieta de todo, abstinence from all stimuli, isolation, and radical sobriety, so that the consciousness, emptied of noise, can receive direct knowledge of reality. But you don't need to retreat into the wilderness to rediscover the purity of silence. A few hours a day of isolation from the world are enough, without screens, music, words, or news. Sit, breathe, and listen to your heartbeat. When the mind quiets, a space emerges that observes thoughts without identifying with them. In that moment, you understand that you are not the content, but awareness itself. Zen monks call this practice zazen, sitting upright and still, letting every thought drift by like a cloud in the sky of the mind. In this observation, the constructed identity dissolves. The self dissolves, leaving pure presence. From this comes a profound peace that does not depend on external circumstances, but on the absence of internal resistance. The modern world educates us to noise, haste, and accumulation. Silence and emptying oneself seems like death. And in part it is the death of the rushing self, the searching self, the self that fills the void with distraction. But from this death comes true life, the rebirth of the authentic self. The wise did not fast to suffer, but to be reborn. Only those who remain silent can hear the language of their own soul. Sound is the matrix of form. Before matter existed, there was vibration, and from that vibration, atoms, stars, and creatures were born. All the planet's traditions agree on this principle. In the beginning was the word, the logos, the aum, the nad, the primordial sound that caused the universe to arise from silence. Everything vibrates, and every vibration carries information. Thus, knowing sound means understanding the very structure of reality. The ancient Egyptians harnessed the power of sound in the resonance chambers of the pyramids, where the priests' vocal frequencies produced perceptible effects on the body and consciousness. The quartz-filled granite walls amplified the sound waves to the point of generating trance-like states and healing. The same techniques are found in Gregorian chants, Vedic mantras, and shamanic drumming. Different cultures, the same principle. In the harmonic chanting of Tibetan monks, the multiple vibrations of a single voice generate frequencies that directly influence the body's energy centers. Sacred instruments, bells, gongs, drums, didgeridoos, are not merely for entertainment, but to restore the body's vibrational coherence. Each cell is a tuning fork. When an external frequency reminds it of its natural resonance, it spontaneously retunes. Sound also affects the emotional realm. Every spoken word is a wave that affects the subtle matter of the environment and the body. The Essenes taught us to speak only after breathing and feeling the vibration in our hearts, since every word uttered shapes the world. Sacred Hebrew linguistics is based on this. Each letter is a frequency, and the divine name, WH, is not spoken but breathed, as it represents the very rhythm of creation. In Vedic ritual, mantras are not prayers but sound codes. The Gayatri mantra, for example, contains 24 syllables that correspond to the 24 vertebrae of the human spine. Reciting it literally realigns the body to the cosmic frequency. Native Americans also knew this science. The beat of the drum imitates the heart of Mother Earth, and man, tuning into that rhythm, rediscovers his original connection with the whole. Western music, despite having developed harmonic complexity, has partially lost its sacred power. The modern tuning of 440 Hz was introduced by convention, but ancient instruments were tuned to 432 Hz, a frequency in resonance with the Earth's pulse and the golden ratio. Many contemporary researchers argue that returning to this tuning would restore music's rebalancing effect on the nervous system and the human energy field. The voice is the most powerful yet forgotten instrument. Singing requires presence, not talent. When you chant a prolonged sound, an om, a vocal tone, a simple ah, you stabilize your breathing, vibrate your skull, and massage your internal organs through resonance. The ancients knew this. Monastic chants were exercises in spiritual and physiological health, not mere liturgical rituals. In integrative medicine, we now speak of sonic coherence. When you emit a tone while maintaining attention and breathing, your heartbeat, brain waves, and the body's electromagnetic pulsations become synchronized. It's the state the ancients called the harmony of the spheres, the return of the human being to his or her original vibration. Ultimately, the fifth ritual teaches that every word, note, or breath is a creative act. By speaking with love, by singing with awareness, we shape reality. The world responds to the frequency we emanate, and healing is nothing more than returning to one's own authentic melody. The earth is not an inert element but a living organism. This is what ancient peoples called her Pachamama, Gaia, Mother. Today's scientists, with James Lovelock's theory, have only confirmed what sages have known for millennia. The earth self-regulates its own balance like a body, and every being is its cell, fiber, and breath. Forgetting this connection has made humanity sick with separation. The sixth ritual teaches us to reconnect with the earth's body to regain health and clarity. Andean shamans called it Saminchakui. Feeding on earth's light, they knelt on the ground, touched their foreheads to the rock, and breathed with the mountain. Each exhalation released fear. Each inhalation welcomed the earth's strength. Balance returned, not through faith, but through real electromagnetic exchange. Modern science talks about grounding. When bare feet touch the ground, free electrons from the planet flow into the body, neutralizing free radicals and inflammation. Studies by Gaetan Chevalier and Clint Ober show that 30 minutes of direct contact with the earth reduces blood viscosity and lowers cortisol, the stress hormone. The simple act of walking barefoot restores the homeostasis that urban life disrupts. Farmers, shepherds, and monks who live in constant contact with the earth exhibit more resilient physiologies and more stable minds. The body, in contact with the ground, realigns itself with the Schumann frequency, the Earth's natural electromagnetic pulse, approximately 7.83 Hz, the same frequency as the alpha brainwaves of calm and meditation. The ancients didn't know the numerical data, but they perceived its effect. Being on the earth calms the mind and restores order to the blood. The Egyptians built temples on telluric nodes, believing that the strength of the soil enhanced their rituals. The Celts drew stone circles to channel the subtle currents of the subsoil, transforming them into portals of healing. Benedictine monks also worked the earth as a form of prayer. Digging, sowing, and harvesting were acts of communion. None of them separated manual labor from contemplation. The earth was a sacred book, not a resource to be exploited. Chinese medicine speaks of earth qi, dense, nourishing yin energy that rises from the feet to the heart. Modern man, isolated by synthetic shoes and floors, is cut off from this invisible nourishment, yet a few minutes a day are enough to re-establish it. Walking on the grass, touching the trunk of a tree, sitting on the ground and breathing slowly. Each contact re-establishes an ancient dialogue, a current of life that rises and falls like sap. Biophysics demonstrates that the human body functions like an antenna. Bones, fluids, and tissues conduct electrical impulses and vibrations. When we are isolated, the system loses its natural resonance and becomes ill. When we reconnect to the Earth's field, the circuit closes and healing occurs spontaneously. Symptoms are not punishments, but messages of disconnection. The earth is the quietest and most accessible medicine. In a more subtle sense, contact with the earth stabilizes the soul. Every intense emotion finds refuge in the soil, which receives and transforms it. Burial, planting, and fire rites are born from this knowledge, returning what is in excess to the earth so that it may return to life in another form. Shamans know that kneeling and touching the ground with the forehead is not a gesture of submission, but of recognition, remembering that we come from it and that we return to it. The science of sound also confirms this interaction. Low-frequency vibrations, like those of shamanic drumming or deep chanting, are transmitted into the earth and return to the body amplified. It's a two-way communication. The earth listens and responds. When sound arises from an open heart, the earth itself becomes a mirror and resonance chamber for the soul. Humans are not above the earth, but within it. Every breath, every heartbeat, every drop of blood is made of the same substance that vibrates in the mountains and oceans. Honoring the earth means honoring one's body, and vice versa. In this mutual recognition, healing occurs. The body calms, the mind clears, the soul remembers it is part of an intelligent and generous whole. The sixth ritual doesn't require belief, but presence. Sit on the ground, breathe with it, give thanks. From this gesture comes stability, root, the silent strength of those who no longer flee from their origins. When the body returns to its earth, the spirit also finally finds a home. The last ritual is the simplest and most inaccessible: love. Not the emotional or sentimental kind, but the intelligent force that structures the universe, the cohesive principle that holds together atoms, stars, and destinies. The ancients never defined it, because understanding love is equivalent to dissolving into it. It is the mother vibration, the original frequency from which everything emanates, and to which everything returns. In the Egyptian mystery schools, love was described as the law of returning to the source. Initiates learned that every act done without love produces dissonance. Every act done with love generates order. The same law was known to the Vedic sages, who called it bhakti, devoted union, to the Taoists as te, the virtue that springs from the center, to the Greek philosophers as agape, universal love, distinct from desire and attachment. Contemporary science, in its own language, is beginning to recognize the existence of this force. Studies by the HeartMath Institute have shown that the human heart, when feeling gratitude or compassion, emits an electromagnetic field 100 times more powerful than that of the brain, capable of synchronizing surrounding brain waves. Love, literally, orders biological and mental chaos. In ancient Egypt, the heart was weighed against the feather of Ma'at, not by moral judgment, but by vibrational measure. Only those who lived in balance, without guilt or resentment, were light enough to return to the light. In the East, the same principle became the doctrine of karma. Every action performed with love liberates. Every action without love binds. Andean shamans spoke of Aini, the principle of reciprocity, giving and receiving in equal measure, since the universe thrives on balance, not sacrifice. True love is not born from thought, but from the unified perception of life. When human beings feel separate, they fear and dominate. When they recognize themselves as part of the whole, they love and serve. Love is not a virtue, but a state of consciousness. It is the memory of unity. This is why the great masters, Christ, Buddha, Krishna, Lao Tzu, did not found religions, but reminded humanity of its original nature of compassion and interconnectedness. Every ritual, every practice, every path leads to this: breathing with the world, purifying oneself with water, awakening with light, remaining silent in silence, vibrating in sound, rooting oneself in the earth. Everything converges in a single gesture: love. Love is the synthesis of the 6 previous keys, their higher octave. Without love, breathing is mechanical, water is sterile, light is cold, silence is empty, sound is noise, earth is dust. Love transforms matter because it recognizes it as spirit. When we love, even the cell responds. The neuropeptides of joy and empathy modulate the immune system, synapses multiply, the heart rhythm harmonizes. Every living organism in the presence of love flourishes. Plants grow stronger when touched with kindness. Animals are calmed by the sound of a loving voice. Even water, as Emoto's experiments demonstrated, reflects crystals of perfect symmetry when exposed to words of love. For ancient Egyptian healers, healing meant restoring the heart to coherence. The priest did not heal with occult powers, but with presence. He knew that the vibration of his cardiac field influenced that of the patient. Healing occurred when 2 hearts entered into resonance. Today we would call it quantum empathy, but the principle remains the same. Love is the only agent that unites, integrates, and repairs. Vedic texts state that the heart is the inner sun of the human body. From it radiates the light that guides the mind and breath. When the heart is closed, life dies. When it opens, everything illuminates. This is why the masters say that there is no enlightenment without love. Light without warmth is sterile, and knowledge without compassion is sterile power. Love is also discipline. It is not indulging or pleasing, but seeing and understanding without separating. Those who love are not blind. They are lucid. They recognize the pain, but do not fuel it. They observe the wound, but do not judge it. This is why it is the most feared and misunderstood energy, because it dissolves the power of the ego and restores sovereignty to consciousness. In cosmic terms, love is the law of cohesion that holds galaxies in orbit and electrons in their shells. In human terms, it is the invisible glue of every relationship, the force that makes trust, creation, and the continuity of life possible. The universe, quantum physicists say, is an entanglement field. Everything is connected. Love is the direct perception of this connection. The final ritual isn't taught, it's remembered. It's not practiced, it's lived. It begins in the body, a breath, a glance, a touch of the hand, and expands to encompass everything. When love becomes a permanent state of consciousness, there's no longer any need for rituals. Life itself is a ritual. Thus ends the manuscript of the Seven Lost Secrets. It offers neither dogma nor promises, but memory. It reminds man that he is neither an orphan nor a stranger in this world, but a participant in the eternal breath that moves stars and cells. Breathing, drinking, lighting, keeping silent, singing, walking, loving. Seven gestures that, if performed with awareness, restore matter to its original splendor. The circle closes where it all began, in the heart. There, breath meets light, sound becomes silence, earth becomes sky. There, human beings recognize that healing does not mean changing, but remembering what has always been, a fragment of eternity that beats in the universal rhythm of love. Everything you have heard is not a myth or a distant philosophy. It is the map to remember who you are. Breathe, drink, welcome the light, embrace the silence, vibrate, walk, love. There is no need for temples. Your body is already the temple. Your life is already the rite. If this message touched something deep within you, leave a message. Like, write in the comments what resonated with you most, subscribe to the channel, and leave me your hype. Not because of algorithms, but because this space is a threshold. The more we cross it, the more the world's memory awakens. I wish you to remember, to heal, to shine, and remember this is just the beginning of the return.